You're listening to the Fed and Fearless podcast. On today's episode, I'm chatting with Tracy Goodwin all about how your voice impacts your success and what you can do today to start improving and optimizing your natural voice. So stay tuned. Welcome to the Fed and Fearless podcast. I'm your host, Laura Schoenfeld, a registered dietitian, nutrition business coach, and online entrepreneur with over 10 years of experience in online business. And I'm here to show you everything I've learned about creating a life and a business that nourishes you. On this podcast, we'll talk about the lifestyle habits, practical strategies, mindset shifts, and leaps of faith required to build a healthy body, a powerful mind, a strong spirit, and a successful business. Hey there, welcome back to the Fed and Fearless podcast. I'm your host, Laura Schoenfeld, and we have an awesome episode for you today with somebody that I've worked with as a coach over the last few months and plan to continue working with because I know that there's so much more I can learn from her. So our guest today is Tracy Goodwin. Tracy's the owner of Captivate the Room and creator of Psychology of the Voice. She's taught thousands of celebrities, professionals, and entrepreneurs how to transform their lives and the lives of their listeners with their voice by stepping into the power of their natural voice so they can amplify their authority and truly captivate the room. Tracy's unique approach gets to the core of limiting voice habits and transforms voices from the inside out. People all over the world seek her out for her expertise to free up their voice barriers and get them to the next level in their business and their life. And like I said, I've worked with Tracy over the last few months. I was first introduced to her at a retreat in Park City, Utah. I flew into Salt Lake City, but in Park City, Utah with my coach, James Wedmore. He's worked with Tracy Goodwin, and that's how he decided to bring her in for us to work with her at the retreat. And it was definitely eye-opening to see just, first of all, how everyone in the room, for the most part, had some level of challenge in their voice that needed to be addressed so that they could really optimize the use of their voice, but also just how I felt during that situation having my voice worked on. As we'll talk about in this interview, I've had some experiences in the course of my life and my professional career being criticized about my voice. And it was something that definitely affected the way I was showing up when I was doing anything, whether it be podcasting or videos for my clients or showing up on coaching calls. It was definitely affecting the voice that I was using and the control I was trying to have over my voice, which, as you'll learn in this interview, is not actually the most effective way to connect with your audience and really catch people's attention and capture their emotions as well. So it's a really great conversation. There's so much more you guys can learn from Tracy. So we really just scratched the surface today, but I have really appreciated working with her. You guys might have noticed that maybe you're seeing my voice change a little bit over the last few months on the podcast. And I know that her teaching and her perspective on voice improvement is going to really help you use your voice most effectively so that you can have success in your life. And especially if you're an entrepreneur, this is going to be really important for you to be able to connect with your audience and to sell your services in a way that feels really authentic to you. So I'm super pumped to have her on the show. She's amazing. I know you're going to love her. And without further ado, here is Tracy Goodwin. All right, everybody. Well, I am so excited to have with me on the show today, Tracy Goodwin. Welcome to the Fed and Fearless podcast, Tracy.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Well, I'm so excited to have you here. And I haven't necessarily mentioned you a lot to my overall audience, but I've definitely mentioned you to my clients. And so I know that a bunch of them are going to be listening. And I just can't wait to just get your message out to people because I feel like it's made such a big impact on me in the last several months that we've been working together and that I got exposed to you through my coach, James Wedmore. And I know that this is something that a lot of my clients and just people in general trying to run businesses could be benefiting from a ton. So I'm so pumped to talk to you about it. And just so our audience can get to know you a little bit better, what brought you to this place? Like, how did you actually become a voice coach? And is voice coach even the right word? I feel like sometimes that's maybe not even an accurate description.
Well, that's the $1,000,000 question right there. So many people say, don't call yourself a voice coach. That is not what you do, especially if they've been exposed to the work that I do. And honestly, I ran from this work. It was very clearly my purpose from the day I was born. And because I was born it was very much a generational thing. Children are to be seen and not heard. So when I started realizing that I was gifted in this area, I couldn't make the connection. How in the world was I to be a voice coach when I was raised in silence? That doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. So I became an actor. I became a director. I directed plays all over the world. And the whole time, people are finding me to coach their voices. And I finally got it. And I loved the work and I was great at the work. And the early years of my career were all about accents. I taught accents to actors and I took accents away from business people. And when I finally realized, oh, okay, I get it. This is my purpose. Then I was off and running.
Mm-hmm. Now, is this something that you were trained how to do, or was it just like a natural ability that you honed yourself?
I always had the ability to hear voices. That's a very strange thing right there. What do you do? I hear voices, right? I always could hear voices and the backstory of voices, what somebody might know as a voice intuitive. I didn't know that's what it was. But as an actor, and because of several things that happened to my voice in college, I was exposed to some of the greatest voice masters of our time. So I had worked with voice coaches, and it was really in that work with those voice coaches that I felt like I couldn't teach exactly like they do. I couldn't teach a methodology because I had these voices in my head, right? So it was definitely amazing to get to work with masters of the game, but I always think I knew I would craft my own methodology, but those masters influenced my work, no doubt.
And it's interesting that you said that you started with the accent adding or removal, because I know you may still do that, but that wasn't something that we really got into much with the coaching group that I was in. And I think the focus for most of the people in that group they were trying to get a message across to their audience. So a lot of them were entrepreneurs. I don't think all of them were necessarily, but I think most of them seemed like they were kind of in that I'm running my own business and I want to be able to communicate my message and connect with my audience better. And I know that a lot of people listening to the show are in that same boat. So was it just like an organic transition to get to that place where you're now helping entrepreneurs like connect with their audiences more effectively? Or was it like, what was the thing that led you to start doing that?
It's definitely been a process, and it's actually been 30 plus years of a process. I started with dialects and I loved dialects, and actually psychology of the voice, the methodology that I teach now was born out of dialects. But then my world expanded into professionals, executives. In fact, one of my first corporate contracts was a Fortune 500 company, C-suite, removing their dialects. So it was a general ease and progression into professionals, executives, and from that into entrepreneurs. And it really was my love of entrepreneurs. Not that I love all my clients, but I think it's really about moving towards my purpose. My purpose was to take the people that are so open to this kind of transformation to get the maximum results for people. And I just really fell in love with entrepreneurs, just like I fell in love with professionals, just like I fell in love with actors. But it's a leveling, moving into serving in different areas, I think, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you mentioned working to remove accents and dialects in a corporate setting. And I wonder if that's something that is still as common nowadays. Because in my mind, I would think that people are a little bit less worried about having an accent when they're talking. Because I think, just with social media and authenticity being the new thing that everyone wants to be themselves and everything, I would think that completely removing any sort of sense of accent wouldn't necessarily be the goal that a lot of people would have. Whereas I could imagine that, 20 years ago, I'm sure that was actually really important to a person's career path to not necessarily, and I do think it's unfortunate that it's like certain accents are considered to sound less educated or less professional. But I don't know if you've noticed any shift there as far as that being a demand in service, if that's still an issue that people feel like their accents need to be removed, or if you're seeing kind of more of a shift to that. I don't care about my accent. I just want to sound the best that I can be with who I am and not change who I am to kind of fit that mold of what's expected.
Such a great conversation about this, because a lot of people that have accents have a lot of concern about their accents. And 25, 30 years ago, it was a whole different world. We were not living in the global space. There was no internet, right? I mean, I got my first computer probably around this time when I was doing this dialect work. It was not even the world we live in. I mean, these people were finding me via Yellow Pages, Laura. I mean, there was no Instagram. And it was very much a big thing then. We completely eradicated dialects. And it was very challenging work. And I never fully bought into it because it is a part of who you are. It is a part of the magic of what you bring to the table. Now, as things progressed and the world got more global, I would say 20 years ago, we started shifting out of this, that a dialect is a problem. And so for anybody out there that has a dialect and you're not showing up on video or you're not doing a podcast or whatever because, my accent's a problem. No, it's not. It is not. And I want you to rewrite that story. And, things change. 20, 30 years ago, from a voice perspective, we had Walter Cronkite, right? And everything was this beautiful liquid voice. No. The data that I'm looking at right now is saying, no, I don't want slick, polished voice. I need to know who you are. And that includes your accent. So that's a really important thing for people to know, is that your accent is not a problem. We're not living in 1991 anymore, right?
Yeah. And I feel like whether it's an accent or just the tone of your voice, I've had people tell, and I think I mentioned to you when we were working together that myself and my colleague who used to run a co-podcast together, we would get criticism about our voices. And that, that kind of thing sticks with you. And if you think you don't sound good and you think your voice isn't good, you're not going to necessarily want to show up and talk on camera or even on a podcast, even if you're not being recorded. It did take some time for me to get to a place where I was like, comfortable with the idea of my voice being the primary vehicle of message delivery. And I think I've come a long way, but there still always are certain moments where you're like, oh, I wish I sounded better. I wish my voice was different. And that's not why I joined your program. It wasn't like I was trying to change my voice entirely. I just knew that there was some stuff holding me back from really being able to express it as fully as I potentially could. And so that was what led me to sign up to work with you. Because again, I don't believe that we should be trying to like turn into this super vanilla, pleasing everyone version of ourselves to get success in entrepreneurship. And so I think it's really important that we're distinguishing between, voice coaching to be your best self as opposed to voice coaching to sound like somebody else.
Yes, yes, yes. That is it right there. And that there's so much in what you just said. First, voice is our identity. Literally within the first 30 seconds, I hear your voice. I am subconsciously determining who you are. There is so much vulnerability around voice. That's why people get so hung up about it. I don't like my voice. I want to sound like so many people have come to work with me and they said, I started talking like so-and-so because they're successful. I started talking like I've had people that have forced their voice into a lower pitch because they got criticized for a higher pitch. And it really is, I believe it is the greatest asset we have. It is the most underutilized asset we have. And it is how we reveal, I believe the voice is the orchestra of the heart. It is how we reveal who we are. And far too often, people don't realize that their perception of what they're putting out is not what we're receiving. And your subconscious is always going to be overcritical. Oh, you sound this, you sound that. You don't, oh, I can't believe you said that. I can't. And we're over here going, wow, I really like her. We have to take that into consideration, that the subconscious is trying to keep you safe and small. But we're not necessarily receiving what you think you're doing that is so bad. It's not. I don't believe in bad voices. You know that. There's voices, and then there's voices we can maximize. Are you revealing the best version of you?
Mm-hmm. And is this kind of your definition of psychology of the voice, or do you have a further definition to share with the audience so that they know kind of what your theory is behind improving voices?
So psychology of the voice, and this is literally the piece where people go, I don't know if you should call yourself a voice coach, because it is about voice. But when we think of voice coach, we think of technique, slow down, be louder, pause. And that is a part of it. But taking it all the way back to dialects, I was fascinated with why does the Irish guy sound Irish and I sound Texan? I like that. I want to sound like that. And what I discovered was the subconscious put those dialects in for sense of belonging. They literally tell the face how to hold the placement of the dialect. That led to, is there more? And what I discovered is we all have voice stories. One phrase before we're 5 years old can literally determine how we're going to use our voice forever. So you're 3 or 4 or 5, and the preschool teacher says, why are you so loud? Your subconscious says, don't worry, I've got this, and starts to make your voice smaller. So psychology of the voice is what is going on inside that is holding the voice habit on the outside that may or may not be serving you to the best of your ability. Like you were even saying, I would be, am I maximizing my voice? Generally, people aren't, because they've got those stories in their head going, why you got to be so big? Why do you got to be so dramatic or whatever it is? And we're over here going, this is great. You're not dramatic at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that was something that I had to really work on in the last several months of working with you, is that idea of, and I don't know if this is something that came up when I started doing things like podcasting and I got those comments about sounding, one person, well, probably multiple people actually said we sounded like Valley girls, which is funny because I'm from New Jersey, so definitely not a Valley girl. Or they were just like, oh, you have a vocal fry like Kim Kardashian and I can't listen to you. And so getting those kind of comments when we were putting a lot of energy into creating this free resource and we wanted it to be good. And so when we got those kind of comments, I think I maybe consciously started trying to change the way that I spoke. Especially, I think this is something that women might deal with more. I don't know. Women always have it a little harder, I think, than men. But I find that some of the changes that I was making actually cut into some of the melody of my voice, if that makes sense, where people are like, don't do up talk, don't go too high pitched. You're going to sound unprofessional. And again, I do think this is something that women get more than men because women's voices are less professional than men. So we have to sound more like men, I guess. But that is something that I think I consciously started kind of flatlining my voice to sound quote unquote more professional. And that's, first of all, changing what you're doing to respond to someone who doesn't actually like you is probably not the worst thing to do. But, I was changing my voice to suit what I thought other people would think is professional. And I'm sure it wasn't awful. I'm sure it wasn't offensive to anybody, but I know that wasn't something that was really going to help me connect with people and connect with my audience. And it also is exhausting to try to manipulate your voice all the time into something that doesn't come naturally. So that was a big reason why I sought your support, because it was all right, I know I probably picked up some bad habits from these comments that I've gotten either as an adult or as a younger person. And I do think it immediately showed up in my voice when I was trying to correct the issue for people. So I'm guessing you work with a lot of people that have had that kind of experience where one comment, even as an adult, could kind of shift how they actually show up.
100%. In fact, it's a lifetime of stacking up. That first phrase before you're 5, but then it's teachers, relationships, college professors, bosses, Joe the doorman. I mean, it just never ends, and it all creates altercation in how we use. I mean, I could sit here and tell you stories all day long about what people have altered. And this comes from, I am trying to be what I think you want me to be. And that is one of the first things that we have to rewrite. How do I even know what you want me to be? The minute I try to start adjusting, I've lost the game because I've lost who I am. And you nailed it. It is exhausting. And many of the people that come and work with me, when they get here, they're exhausted. They are so exhausted from trying to juggle my video voice and my this voice and my sales voice and all of these voices. And just a note about women's voices, yes, 100%. The research shows me that there are more societal implications on women's voices. You have to be nice. Before we're 12, we have ingrained the message, stand up and speak your truth, but be nice and don't upset anybody while you do it. Right. And there's different societal implications around men as well. But yeah, there's a lot of noise out there that causes a struggle for women to really own and stand in the power of who they are that is unnecessary. And that is truly my mission, Laura, is to create that freedom for people, that inner freedom of, hey, guess what? I'm going to show up like I am. I'm going to work from they just love me. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely a better place to work from than they don't like me and I have to try to make them like me. And there's nothing I can do about my voice because it's not likable or something like that.
Yeah, that's just lies of the mind. I call them lies of the mind. And it's the subconscious trying to keep you safe, right? First of all, do we even really, though it just rattles me to the core when people make comments like that, because I know how damaging it is. First of all, how many years do you have listening to voices? It's all subjective. And to state things like that on a stranger's work is really about the reframe of judgment. And I know you know this. I'm saying this just for the listeners. Judgment is not about you. It's about how people are perceiving you through their own filters. And I really think there's a freedom piece in that. If I'm going to show you who I really am, I can't be worried about your judgment. I can't work from that place. You may judge me. You may not like me. You may not like my voice. You may not like something I say, but I cannot change who I am to make you happy, or we're changing all day long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then if you're talking to multiple people, there's literally no chance you would be even able to change for everyone, right? It's like trying to figure that out. And I think that's a big reason why people tend to have stage fright and fear of public speaking, because it's like, it's hard enough to try to be what you think an individual wants you to be when you're talking to them. But if you get up in front of a group and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I literally can't adjust. I can't predict what they're going to feel, and not that you ever can, but I think there's a thought that maybe, if I just like connect with that one person, I can really be who they want me to be. I do think I would say that for myself, I used to have a pretty strong fear of public speaking. I'm sure I still wouldn't love getting up on a stage right now necessarily, but it is something where I'm guessing a lot of that had to do with feeling totally out of control with the reception of the audience and being like, oh, I hope that this is going to be good. And it's funny because I've had people tell me before, after I did a talk, that I was like, oh my God, I was so nervous. I feel like I was going to black out. Like it was really bad. And people would come up to me and be like, wow, that was so good. I'm like, Were we at the same talk? Because I was like literally about to die during that. So, and I haven't had that experience in a while, but it is really interesting, like you said a little while ago about our perception of what's happening and then it being totally different from what other people's perception is. So the thought that we could even remotely try to control somebody else's perception is really just not accurate.
It's not, but it doesn't surprise me because look at how the world teaches us to be. Read the room, keep them happy, do what there's all this information or knowledge, or this is the way you need to do it coming at us. And then you've got the subconscious working inside going, yeah, that's a good choice because then you'll be safe. I certainly don't have any criticism from people working from that way because that's what the world teaches us to do. This is really a reframe in, I'm not going to be tentacles out, which I call it tentacles out. I have this visual of an octopus reaching out and seeing what do you want? What do you think? And how are you liking me? And how am I sounding to you? We have to bring those tentacles back in and stand in our own power and trust that that is more than enough because it is.
And that's hard to do, right? I mean, speaking from personal experience, you can hear that and understand it. But when it actually comes to practicing it, it's like, oh, I feel myself going back into that mode of wanting to, respond to that person's reaction as opposed to just sharing what I want to share. And I know that you have the concept of voice masks that you talk about a lot. So can you share with the audience what those are and how do they affect people's communication with others, either in a one-on-one scenario or in a group, which, is pretty much, those are your two situations when you're communicating, right? It's either in a conversation or it's some kind of getting in front of an audience.
Yes. So voice masks is a concept that I came up with when years ago, I would hear certain sounds in people's voices. And I chase patterns, I chase sounds, and I follow patterns, and I ask questions to see if what I'm hearing or what I perceive I'm hearing is what is happening. And when people would start to take on certain vocal patterns, and I'll give you some of the examples, I would literally feel a barrier come down between us. I call it the bulletproof glass. And I always would give the example. I grew up in big cities and, you go to the bank and the teller has bulletproof glass. You can see her, you can hear her, but you can't touch her. Now, don't take that literal, but there's a missing connection point based on certain sounds. And it's about letting me in. I'm letting you in right now. This is who I really am. Or I could put on my people pleaser mask and just be neutral because I don't want you to think I'm too dramatic. And you feel that bulletproof glass go down. So I would hear this in people and I would ask the question, are you a people pleaser? And every single time they would say yes. So I started tracking this data and I started researching these sounds. And these sounds, these masks, some people have all of them, but they come from those stories. So there's a needing to prove mask. Needing to prove and people pleasing are the two biggest. So if I have a needing to prove mask, I need to prove to you I know what I'm talking about. And now all of a sudden that glass is down because you're not getting in because I got to prove to you I know what I'm talking about. And I discovered that one when I was working with a man. He came to work with me and he said, Tracy, I think I'm repelling potential customers. And I said, you are. And he said, how do you know? And I asked him, this is how I formulated this mask. I said, what are you trying to prove? And his face just fell. And he said, I've spent my whole life trying to prove my worth to my father. It went all the way back to that story, but it was in the muscle memory. It was a habit. It was a mask that he put on when he felt insecure, or maybe they're not going to buy from me, or maybe they don't like me. There's buffering is a mask. I got to buffer the bad news, or justification, convincing, say all the words. Have you ever had anybody and they say it this way and they say it this way and they say it this way and they give you more words? That's a mask. You've got cheerleader mask. Everything is great all the time. You've got what I call on, where a lot of people will go like this on video. They go on, they put that on mask on because it's so uncomfortable to be on video and they feel like they're supposed to be something. So there's all these masks that we put on and it sounds and it creates a disconnect where you cannot, I'm not letting you in. I'm not letting you connect to me.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting you use that example of the client you had that was repelling clients because we teach sales call strategies to our customers inside of our Nutrition Business Accelerator program. And it's really interesting because the strategy works. Like there's certain people that they use it and it's just like skyrockets how many, yeses they get to their services. And then for some people, I still think it improves their outcomes. I don't think they do it and it's like no impact, but they don't have quite as much of an improvement or, there's only a certain amount of money that they're really able to ask for before it starts getting, lots of no's. And I think a big part of that, not necessarily 100%, but I do think a big part of that is when people show up on a sales call and you've taught me a lot about this concept of like being in the outcome and trying to control the outcome. And so when you're on a sales call, in theory, the outcome that you want is to close the sale, right? And so I think a lot of people are either showing up in a way that, is that I'm trying to control things, improve things and do that, or they feel really nervous and insecure about what they're selling. So then that might be like this kind of sheepish kind of voice that shows up, even if they're following the script. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on, because I think sometimes people don't realize, when they say, oh, I don't get why this person's so successful and I'm doing the same thing and I'm not. And I do think a lot of it comes into how are you actually connecting or not connecting with your audience, even though you're, taking the same actions, it's just not resonating. And it's funny that word resonating is like literally like a sound, right? And so that's not connecting with the people you want to connect with, or maybe you are getting clients, but they're not the right clients for you and what you're, who would really light you up to work with. And I do think a lot of that can come back to how people are showing up and speaking to the potential customers.
Oh, absolutely. The two things that will unravel a voice for many people, and they're different for everybody. Sometimes, again, it's both. Sell me something or tell me about yourself. Those two things, there's this whole new bucket of sounds that come out. And when I talk about selling, there's a couple of things that are big shifters for people from a voice perspective. First, I studied what I call foreshadowing. Are you telling me what you don't want? And I'm processing sound subconsciously. I'm hearing your words. I'm looking at your face. I'm hearing your voice. But my subconscious is processing microscopic sounds. So a lot of people will bring into the sales call, ooh, I don't know if they can afford me. Now, they're not saying that, but it's coming out in their voice. And so the listener's subconscious is going, oh, yeah, you know what? I don't think I can afford this, right? We're telling people to do what we don't want them to do if we think it's going to be a no. This is huge with people that do cold calling. If they get a no, they get a no, they get a no. I guarantee you they're going to bring that no into the calls all day long, and they're not going to sell anything all day long. They are foreshadowing, I don't think you're going to buy. And that is working from that outcome. Like you said, it goes back to, what do you think I'm thinking? Don't think about what I'm thinking. What do you want me to do? Work from that place. So being in that now versus bringing in all that you don't want, or that you think I'm thinking, or you think I don't like you, or whatever it is really hurting you on the subconscious level. Now, we also have something I call bits of you. And this is a big game changer for people in selling. They get on these calls and you brought up the word professional earlier. And I love that. I've got to be professional. And that's one of the masks. I'm going to be professional in this sales call. I'm going to have a conversation with you, and I've got questions to ask you, and I've got some information. I don't know who you are. So when I roll in bits of you, And by bits of you, I mean, who are you? Do you snort, laugh? Do you get excited? Do you get serious? Who are you? You got to bring those bits of you in, because that is how your ideal client is identifying that you are their person, that you get them, that you get what they're going through, that you're on the other side of it. All of that is sounds that we need to create an experience to tell their subconscious, yep, I'm the one that can help you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's so important, especially in the nutrition and health space where there's and not to say this in a negative way, but there's so many people doing online businesses for health and nutrition right now that if somebody's not addressing this kind of stuff, they're not necessarily going to get as many clients as they're capable of, because the person that is looking for the person to work with, especially at a higher price point, they're going to want to feel connected with the person. It's not just, I feel like we get into the space of, oh, it's just like a medical appointment and it's just about how much information I can give them and all of that. And I really think the connection piece is huge and getting bigger because, again, people have choices, right? It's not like, well, you're the only dietitian in town, so I guess I'm going to have to just work with you because I don't really have any other choices. They might have 100 different people they could choose from. And I do think that this connection, and it's not that you have to be like unloading your entire life story on somebody for them to get to know you a little bit, but I do think the voice thing makes a huge difference. And that's actually one of the reasons I now love podcasting, because it's an opportunity to actually connect with somebody in a much more personal way than if they were just reading something from you. So that's one of the reasons why I'm always like, egging on my clients to get out there and do podcast interviews as part of their audience growth strategy, and then layering what you're talking about and making sure that they're showing up in a way that is actually connecting with people and isn't this like super stiff, professor sounding voice, or isn't this like sheepish, I don't know what I'm talking about voice. Like that's the kind of stuff that I think is really taking the audience growth and the audience connection strategies to the next level.
Connection is everything. Before I even listen to you, I have to feel connected with you. And the data that we're tracking right now is stunning. I'm a data person. I'm a researcher. I want to know the ins and outs. And people are desperate for connection on a level I've never seen in 30 plus years. And it's from the last 2 years. So they are seeking a connection. And we are seeing some amazing things. People are, when they feel connected, when they know who you are, I will pay you big money to work with you because you get me. And you've said that word connection a couple of times, and I'm so glad because it is more critical than ever. You said something else that I think I want to touch on. You said about sheepish voice. And I want to say something about standing in power, standing in confidence. Our subconscious, and this goes back to perception, reception, we have a perception that if I really stand in the power of what I know, I'm going to be received as arrogant. And so many people, so many women will not stand in that confidence because we've all known somebody that was arrogant and we've all said, I do not want to be like that person. It is a perception. You can stand in 10 times the power that you're standing in. And who do you want to hire? Do you want to hire somebody that is owning what they know and excited and revealing the power of what they can do? Or do you want to hire somebody that's, yeah, okay, we could do that. And you're right. People have 100 choices. And I've got data that people are chasing sounds. I want to, and it's all going down subconsciously. They don't know they're doing it, right? But I want to know that you get me. I want to know that you can get me where I want to go, that you're the one for me. Mm-hmm. And that's sound.
Mm-hmm. Now, I don't want to freak people out because I'm sure there's always the chance that people hear what we're talking about and being like, well, now I'm screwed because my voice sucks and there's nothing I can do. Like, I don't want anyone to have that kind of experience. So I would just be curious. I know I've learned a ton from you in the last few months, and I know there's more I could learn. So we know that we're not going to be able to cover everything in the next 5 minutes, but is there anything that if somebody wants to kind of start addressing this, what would be their first step to, moving past some of these vocal challenges they may be experiencing?
Sure. The first thing, and this is rule number one, is there are no bad voices. There are no bad voices. Full stop. There are voices, and there are voices that we can maximize even better. Stop playing that recording. I almost said tape. That would show, okay, we don't do tapes anymore. Just stop playing that tape, because that's just your subconscious trying to keep you safe. That's the first thing. The second thing is get out of the past and the future. Get out of deciding what we're thinking. Get out of deciding we don't like you. Get in the now and start approaching everything like it's a conversation with somebody you know, like, and trust. Because when you're talking to the people that you feel the safest with, that you know, like, and trust, you're going to maximize the closest thing to your real voice. Don't think about you're on video. Don't think about you're on a podcast. Don't think about you're in a sales call. You're talking to Bill and Judy at the kitchen table in your mind's eye. And those are some things that can help to get you settled into the best version of you, the revelation of the best version of you. And that's all it is anyway. It is just a conversation. We are not over here with a checklist. Even like in your example, you've got proof. You've got proof that somebody said you had a bad voice, but that is not real. That is in the past. It is somebody's opinion of something that's their opinion, but your subconscious will glob onto that to keep you safe because your subconscious doesn't want your heart hurt. And so really trusting yourself, really trusting that you've got it and not being in that past or future and just talking to me. That's a bunch of great ways to start, things that you can plug in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's been huge for just myself in the last couple of months, really focusing on that stuff. And it sounds really easy, but it's not, because really, I mean, our brains are so commonly either worried about what's about to happen or what's going to, what if I screw this up, or what if they don't buy? Or like you said, it's in the past of, well, somebody said this about me, so that's, that must be the reality of the situation. So in theory, very simple, but I think when people start to practice that, they'll probably find that, oh, wow, there's these things that happen to me that are, coming to my memory when I am in these situations, or, there's certain things that I'm afraid is going to happen, or I'm assuming is going to happen because, like you said, I have evidence, my last 3 sales calls were a no. So why is this one going to be a yes? And just, really recognizing those thoughts that are, I mean, they're not always conscious. So sometimes I think people have to kind of like really dig in and be like, what is actually creating this for me? But when they do realize that those are the thoughts that they're having, then I find that just putting my attention on the thing I want my attention on, and not necessarily trying to like shove that other stuff out of my brain, which I don't find very effective. That's where I feel like I found the most improvement, is really just making sure my attention is on the things that I want my attention on, that I know will maximize the opportunity for that conversation to go well.
I love that, Laura. And that to me is, if you have a choice to work from it's not going to work out or it is going to work out, intuitively, we often, from that place of protection, say, okay, I'm going to brace for it. This not working out, so I won't be disappointed. And I'm in alignment with you. Make another choice. What do you want to happen? Work from that place. I call it act as if the outcome's yours.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can go one way or the other, pick the other choice.
Yeah.
And it's habits. I love that you said, well, it may sound simple, but when you get in there, it can get tricky. And it's because we're rewriting habits. That's all this work really is what are the habits that you've put in place that aren't working for you? We have to create some new habits.
Right. And I think just naturally our brains are always wired towards preparing for the worst and assuming the worst, which, might be helpful if you're out in the woods and there's saber-toothed tigers roaming around or something, but I don't think it really helps us when we're trying to grow a business. And it's hard. Like I'm speaking about this from a, personal place of still struggling with it. And it doesn't necessarily just go away the minute you decide to start focusing differently. And I've even found that stuff happens, like actual situations happen that then can like drag you back into that mindset. And it's something where it's just a constant, and hopefully not forever. I mean, I feel like I know some people who seem like they're out of it, but maybe they're just dealing with higher level problems. But it's one of these things where it's like you kind of just have to keep choosing the alternative that's not your natural way of thinking, and not let yourself just kind of fall back into the habit of, oh, well, this is how somebody's going to react because this is the way the last person I spoke to react, or this is how, all my relationships have reacted in the past. It's hard.
It is, because that subconscious is strong, and that subconscious wants to keep you safe. And habits are tricky, and we have a lot of fear. It goes back to that. This is our identity. I mean, nobody wants to sound ridiculous. Nobody wants to get a takedown. Nobody wants that. Mm-hmm. But it's about having the tools. Just like I know you give all your students all these tools that they can work with. It's about having the tools. Pick up a different tool. I've created half this. I've done this over 30 years, and I still have to use the tools almost daily.
Yeah.
Right. But I've got them. I know what to do. I know how to redirect. And so years ago, somebody could unravel me. I could be unraveled for weeks. Now you can still zing me, but it's going to be minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm back in working from the place I want to work from.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Well, Tracy, I feel like I could probably talk to you for another hour. And we'll have to have you back on the show because I'm sure there's so much more that you could share with us. And we didn't even hardly get into like actual techniques and vocal variety and all of that, which I know that you have so much knowledge and expertise around. So for those of my listeners who want to connect with you and maybe would be interested in working with you or learning more about how they can get support with this, because again, I think there's ways that you can start paying attention to it, but there is a ton of value to having other people involved and a coach who can actually listen to how you're speaking and maybe point out some stuff that you might not have even recognized or you may not have realized was coming across the way that it is. So if people are interested in connecting with you and getting more support from you, where would they go to do that?
So the best place, the website is captivatetheroom.com. I have a podcast that people might enjoy listening to, Captivate the Room. And I'm on Captivate the Room on social media. So really any of those places you can learn more about the work that I do and get more techniques and just keep in touch.
Yeah. And I think we talked about you having a guide or a freebie that they could go check out if they want to kind of take a few more steps towards maximizing their voice.
Definitely. Go to captivatetheroom.com/voice-formula. And you'll get an email that's going to give you some video techniques that you can start working with beyond what we talked about today.
Yeah. And like I said, there's so much like actual strategy and stuff that you can learn that we didn't have time to necessarily get into today, because I did want to really cover some of the reasons why this would be important, because I think sometimes it would be easy for somebody to think, oh, I don't really need that. Or, they might not think it's something that would really be worth spending time and energy on. But if you realize how much it's influencing the other stuff you're putting time and energy into with growing your business or communicating with people, I mean, it definitely bleeds into personal relationships as well. It's like, I just think it's something super valuable. And I would definitely encourage anybody who wants to really stand out in their business, in whatever message they're trying to share, that they look into getting this addressed, because I think it's relatively rare that people are just naturally, just in their ideal voice and they don't have anything to work through to get better.
100% agreed. And that's because we all live in the world, and the world puts layers and layers and layers of protection around us to keep us safe. So there's always another level. There's always a way to play bigger vocally. And like I've mentioned, I get super excited about it. The voice is always your greatest asset. But right now, like I've said, the data is just showing us it is really time to show up and play big vocally because people are looking for you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time, Tracy, and thanks for everyone for hanging out with us. We will see you here next week on the Fed and Fearless podcast. Take care, everybody. Are you a dietitian or nutritionist business owner that wants to create an online business that consistently brings in dream clients who actually want to buy your services, but you're struggling to figure out the right business strategy to get there? Then keep listening because I have a special opportunity that will help you create the highly profitable and impactful nutrition business that you always wanted. Inside my signature group coaching program, the Nutrition Business Accelerator, created exclusively for nutrition and dietitian entrepreneurs, you'll learn how to start, grow, and scale your online business to 6 figures and beyond, so you can experience the financial and time freedom that you desire. I created this program to help struggling nutrition entrepreneurs get clarity on who they serve, how they serve them, and how they can stand out in a crowded market so that they can more easily attract dream high-paying clients into their online nutrition business. This program is for brand new business owners and nutrition students, as well as those who have been in business for months or maybe even years, but aren't getting the traction that they'd like to see in their growth. Inside the NBA, you'll learn the most important foundational business building and marketing principles, not just the latest tools like social media, so that way you can experience sustainable business growth that adapts to the constantly changing world of online business. Over the course of 12 weeks, I'll show you how to attract high-paying clients who are excited to work with you and willing to pay you the rates that you deserve. You'll get training on how to effectively sell your services in a way that feels authentic and converts prospects into paying clients without feeling pushy or salesy. And you'll get step-by-step instructions on how to create programs and services that provide truly transformative results, leading to glowing testimonials and referrals from your current clients, so you can have the greater impact that you desire in the world around you. You'll also learn how to manage your time, your energy, and your resources so you can get more done in less time and experience the freedom that you really got into entrepreneurship for. When you apply what you learn in the NBA program, you'll never have to feel stuck or overwhelmed in your business again. Want to make this your reality? Then the Nutrition Business Accelerator is your pathway to achieve all of this and more. Get the proven strategy that has helped hundreds of business owners start, grow, and scale their nutrition businesses to $5,000 to $10,000 months and beyond, and accelerate your progress to build the nutrition business of your dreams. Go to lauraschoenfeld.com/NBA to learn more about the program and get your name on the wait list so that you can be the first to know when our doors are open for our next round. That's lauraschoenfeld.com/NBA, which is short for Nutrition Business Accelerator. If you have big dreams of running your own profitable and joy-filled nutrition business, you do not want to miss out on this one-of-a-kind business coaching opportunity. I can't wait to support you inside the NBA program.